I just always liked the miniature world that you had in the comic book. There was something about it that I just really enjoyed. It was so cool, and it was like the stories were interesting. My life was very dull. I don't know. I read a lot of science fiction and stuff like that. It's just like it's just the ordinary reason that kids that age get into science fiction or adventure stories or superhero type things. Just nothing special about it. Really, just like typical stuff. And I was always drawing. So at some point, I just made the connection. It's like, hey, these are actually drawings that people have made, and that I could actually be one of those people and draw the comics myself. That would just be so cool. And I would fantasize about how cool it would be to be one of the people drawing the comic books, making the comics. It just seemed like the neatest thing on earth. So somewhere early on, probably when I was 10 or 11, I just sort of determined, it's like, I'm going to become a comic book artist. Somehow got an assignment to actually draw something. Um, and it was for the Planet of the Apes black and white that they
Hmm.
had, the big one. And I had
Magazine,
a
yeah.
couple other things like
Hmm.
logos and stuff, but lettering corrections. But somehow, and I don't even remember how, but I kind of finagled them to like let me draw a story, and they gave me this story by Doug Mensch called Evolution's Nightmare. It was for Planet of the Apes, and I went crazy on it. I had big giant illustration board stuff that I did all the artwork on, and remember when I brought it into Marvel, John Reporton like almost freaked out because he said, "You know what it's going to cost just to mail this?" Because it was going to be inked by Sid Shores. I think he was in California or someplace like that. You're going to have to mail this all the way to California. Maybe it was Florida, and then they have to mail it back, and we have to do all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of any of that stuff." And it just sounded. And then they were like heavy, like number 80 illustration boards, so they were like cardboard.
So, Ed, you had a great stint, and I think a lot of folks may not know this, but hopefully through this art sale they'll see it. You did some amazing cover layout sketches. Can you
Yeah. Oh
talk
yeah.
about some of those assignments? And in some cases, you drew them. In some cases, other artists drew them. Were there
Right.
particular ones that you were, very proud of?
It was like fun, and I kind of made a little industry of my own out of doing cover sketches because I was really too slow to actually grind out page after page like a story. Like I don't think I ever drew more than 6 pages in a row without getting in deadline trouble of anything I did. But I could do those cover sketches, and I could do one of those in like an hour, or a couple hours, and so I could do a whole bunch of them. And they started out paying really low, like $60 or something like that. But I got them up to like $120 or something like that. So I got to the point where I got pretty good at grinding out the cover sketches, and I would just go from editor to editor and ask them, what they were doing. Did they need a cover? And they always needed covers. They always wanted to have a sketch for the cover artist to know what the cover was going to look like of a comic. And it was just kind of neat. And I remember I used to hang out with Dave Kraft and Jim Salicrup a lot, and Roger Slifer. Those are the three of us. It's amazing.
So, Ed, you had a pretty long career at Marvel. You worked on some very high profile things like the introduction of Cloak and Dagger. As you look back on your Marvel career, what were some of the highlights for you?
The Cloak and Dagger stuff was, of course, like I said, it was a highlight because introduction of new characters that actually got made into their own comic. And I give Bill Mantlo all the credit for that. I mean, he came up with the characters, but and he just gave me a bit vague, like, okay, Cloak is going to have a big cloak, and he's going to hide people in it, and he's going to like use it for teleportation, kind of. And Dagger would be on the other. She'll just be the opposite. She'll be white and light, and have these light daggers that she throws. So, and that was his basic direction for the thing. I just followed. With Mantlo, I would pretty much he would have it already in his mind, and I would just kind of try to figure out what he was thinking, and then just like interpret it. So he basically came up with Cloak and Dagger full blown, but I came up with the visuals of just the way the cloak was with that ribbon kind of the dark like stripes or whatever, and Dagger with the strange cutout with the front of her uniform that everybody like was scandalized by for some reason. Like a lot of people, oh, that was terrible.
Well, Ed, you moved over to DC Comics at some point. Can
Yeah.
you talk about your transition from Marvel to DC, or how you got work over there?
Well, I think what it was is somebody had introduced me to Dick Giordano. I think it was at a Christmas party or something. And he was saying that he had all kinds of projects and he liked my work and he had all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, I'm not like married to Marvel. I can, and I think at the time I was not real happy with Marvel for whatever reason. Maybe it might have been something to do with Jim Shooter, maybe not. I can't remember. Um, so I decided I would start. Sure, I'm a freelancer. I can work for whoever I want to. And I remember Dick was very hot on getting me to do stuff. And then at some point in all of this, somebody at Marvel said basically like, you got to work for one or the other. You can't work for both of us, competitors. So I just said, okay, then I'll work for DC. And I just kind of transitioned over to DC. And Dick was very good. He was like, he was the kind of guy who would take you out to dinner and all this stuff, And which for a freelancer starving in New York was not that I was ever starving, but you know, didn't have that much money, and Dick was very good for stuff like that. Um, and then he started like making sure that I got assignments at DC. So I sort of just brought my little cover sketch business over to DC from Marvel, and ended up staying there for quite a while.
So, Ed, through this sale, people are going to get an opportunity to get artwork that's coming directly from your collection to
Mm-hmm.
them. Anything as you think about them, keeping your artwork safe and preserved for future generations? Anything that you want to say
Well,
to the fans out there that are buying these?
not so much the pages of art, which I have tons of those, but the cover sketches in particular, I've always been very hesitant to sell any of them. So if anybody that's got a cover sketch by me, it's like it's a rare thing because I never sell them. I try not to sell them if I can hold on to them because I always consider the sketches really to be like my real art as opposed to like finished pages or whatever. And of course, I have lots of finished pages too, and I've sold a number of those over the years. And I don't have any covers left. I don't think, I don't know. I would say that one thing with any kind of artwork is try to keep it, especially the markers and things like that can fade. Try to keep it away from moisture. Try to keep it away from too much sunlight. Sometimes I used to spray stuff with fixative. Again, you never know how that's going to affect the artwork. So, a lot of it you just have to be real careful with it and try not to expose it to too much stuff. Try to keep it away from humidity or sunlight in general, because anything like that will damage it or fade it out.